So welcome, Heather Joy. It is so exciting to have you on our third session of our Bridge podcast. I just want to take a few minutes to introduce Heather Joy Thompson. She's a proud Roeper School alumna, class of 1995. Heather Joy is the founder of Perfectly Curated Life, an international lifestyle platform inspiring people to cook better, host beautifully, travel thoughtfully, and live with elegance and intention. Through her engaging and often hilarious videos, she blends culture, cuisine, and storytelling, reminding us that food is a powerful metaphor for love and human connection. An award-winning career diplomat with the United States Department of State, Heather Joy has represented the U.S. at the United Nations, served in Mexico City and Johannesburg, and began her global journey as a Peace Corps volunteer in Burkina Faso. Her travels have taken her to more than 40 countries, shaping both her diplomatic work and her deep appreciation for the world's cultures. Also a graduate of Spelman College and Wayne State University Law School and a member of the Michigan Bar, Heather Joy seamlessly bridges diplomacy, lifestyle, and global connection. So please join me in welcoming Heather Joy Thompson, class of 1995. Heather Joy, it's so good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, do you mind spending a few moments just sharing how you got started, kind of your beginning roots of cooking and being in the kitchen?
Certainly. My love of cooking and how I wound up a roper.
Yeah.
So I was always a really starry-eyed kind of hyper kid.
Yeah.
And my parents recognized that I had some native capacity intellectually, but they just couldn't get me to focus. But the only place I could ever kind of just lock in and stay focused for hours on end was in the kitchen. So when I was little, my mom had a catering company,
Yeah.
and I would just stay in the kitchen with her and just observe everything that she was doing. And I remember her getting me this cookbook, or letting me use a cookbook that she had from Valparaiso University. They had like a women's guild. And so she had some of their cookbooks. And I remember just going through and being so interested in the pages and the ingredients. And then she got me my own kitty cookbook. And I went through and I made every recipe. And I remember one summer when I was probably 8, I learned how to make blueberry muffins. And I think I made those muffins every weekend for summer and fall, right?
Yeah.
Like the blueberries were
Wow.
almost done, but I was like, I'm not done quite yet. So there was always something about being in the kitchen and being around food that I found to be sort of fundamentally calming. Now, when
Yeah.
I got to Roper in stage 4, I was able to find that calm in other areas. But in the
Yeah.
previous school I had been in, it was still kind of chaotic, but then the kitchen was my respite. But the kitchen has stayed with me throughout the years. I'm sorry. It was like springtime where I am, so there's
Yeah.
all sorts of
Yeah.
stuff going on. The kitchen has stayed with me as sort of the place of calm. No matter where I am in the world, I know that I can always find my bearing and my roots in the kitchen.
Awesome. Well, I have a few questions that I'd like us to kind of go through as what I'm really excited to see the demo that you have in store for us. But food is often described as a love language. So what is that? What does food mean to you outside of just the historical presence of like being in the, finding it as a calm space, but then also one where you're able to really bond with your mom. But how do you feel that in those 40 different countries that you've traveled, the different ways that food is seen in terms of how it shows up in love in households?
Yes, so in my line of work, we're always searching for the common denominator, and
Yeah,
sometimes that can be very tough to find.
yeah,
When I'm in countries where we have sort of fundamental disagreements on governance with other countries
right.
or values with other countries, but the one thing that we all do, hopefully every day, is
Yeah,
eat. And
yeah,
even in places where people don't have the good fortune to be able to have dependable quality food, they're still looking to eat. So that drive to eat is one of only about two or three things that every single human being has in common, right? So
Right.
that makes it a fairly easy area in which to get to know and learn about other cultures through their
Mhm.
food ways. An area where it's easy to bond with other people. Generally speaking, there's no such thing as a hostile meal.
Right.
Even if even if you're at loggerheads, if
Yeah.
you're sharing a meal, it's at least a period of time where everybody can kind of bring it down a level
Mhm.
and just enjoy something that is delicious. Just focus on the basic human, like, that tastes good of
Right.
the moment instead of thinking about all the things that you don't have in common. I have also found to be for food to be rather a way to gain a lot of insight about a culture, what ingredients people use, why they use them, what's affordable to the masses, what is considered to be a luxury, what are the celebration foods, and what's like sort of the pan quotidian that people are just every single day. In this country, if the sun rises, you're going to see X. So I'm
Yes.
in Tunisia, North
Mhm.
Africa right now, and couscous is their staple food. So if they don't have anything else, you're going to have couscous and baguettes. My previous assignment was in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. There, it's injera. Injera was their daily bread, and it's served at every single meal. So you know that, for example, as an economic indicator, if something goes wrong and the price of those basic foodstuffs goes up, there's going to be societal upheaval necessarily. If you're depending on this thing that you eat every single day, and then all of a sudden the price quadruples, folks are going to take to the streets. So, in my analysis as an economic officer with the Department of State, those sorts of things come up. So, I look to food not only for the joy that it brings me in preparing it, but also for the insights that it can give me into other people's cultures and their economies.
Right. Wow. Yeah, absolutely. So, is there something that you find? I mean, I know obviously every different region or country will have that staple, but is there something that you've seen has that's been very consistent? Like, is there wheat or a grain that feels a little bit more universal across lands?
I wouldn't say universal, but maybe like half the universe, right?
Okay.
so,
Okay. Yeah.
the part that's universal is that it's almost always a starch.
Sure.
It's almost always a starch or grain that's most accessible and affordable for every single person in any society.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
in our part of the world, in the Western Hemisphere, very often that's corn.
Yeah. Yeah.
I served in Mexico City, but throughout Mexico, Central America, and South America, you see
Mhm.
very heavily corn reliant menus. You see that quite a bit in the U.S. too, but we also have a lot of wheat production.
Right.
On this side of the world, there's a lot of wheat. So couscous
Mhm.
is made from semolina, which is the same flour that's used to make pasta. But if you go a little bit further east, you see the introduction of a lot of rice, and also further to the south, in many parts of sub-Saharan Africa, you see a lot of rice.
Right.
So normally, it's a grain.
Okay.
People's ability to have access to fresh vegetables and to safely use fresh vegetables depends a lot on sanitation conditions and heat conditions. So whether or not they have access to refrigeration can affect how much they're able to really use fresh produce, because things can
Mhm.
go badly very quickly. They can spoil, they can have all sorts of pathogens. So, not every country in the world eats raw vegetables in the way that we do in the US, where we have both clean water to clean vegetables and also refrigeration to preserve them. But grains are normally cooked and they are a little bit safer, generally speaking,
Mhm.
than some other forms of food. So, you will see those quite often around the world.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. It's just with my background. So my dad's side is from Sri Lanka, and so
Oh.
we have lots of obviously lots of rice and lots of dal, and so that lentil protein with the starch has been typically the core and the forefront of every meal, and so it is unique to see how that how there's similarities but differences in that
And
same
do you
way.
guys use a lot of rice too, like they do in much of South Asia?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Sri Lanka is actually on my bucket list. Like,
And so we're really excited that you not only can share a little bit of the rich history and culture of what your work has encompassed and your travels, but now we get to witness that in action. And so, Heather Joy, do you mind sharing with us a little bit more about what you will chef up and demo for us today?
Sure, sure. So we're making this is a meatless Monday salad
Okay.
that features the things that I'm seeing in the market right now in Tunisia. Even though Tunisia is a fairly well-developed economy, it does not have the same access to supply chains that we would be used to in the US. And as a result, what is in season in country is what you see in the grocery store. We don't have pineapples and bananas year round. So this salad features oranges. In a week or so, the oranges will be gone, and then we won't see them again for another 7 or 8 months until orange season recommences. So, we in the US, I think in many Western European nations where we kind of have everything all the time, we try to force seasonality because it's better for the environment, right? And
Yeah,
it's more
yeah.
respectful of nature. Here, we don't have to force it. It's just a
Okay.
matter of fact.
Right, right.
So,
But in many ways,
right,
that's so
I
much
couldn't,
better, right? Yeah.
right.
I
I
tell the
couldn't give
kids,
you something different if I tried, right?
right.
So we're going with what I was able to put together, which I think
Yeah.
is going to be lovely because it really does speak to this country, what I'm seeing. And we're coming off the cusp of winter and going into spring. So it's a period of transition. But there are a few things here that seem to me to be evergreen, like dates. They're huge. It's probably Tunisia's biggest export besides olive oil, which we're also using in this. So those two
Yeah.
things feature very heavily. One thing I did not expect was a lot of citrus. There's tons of it
Mm,
here.
wow.
Um, and then we're using a grain that's not as commonly used here. It's called bulgur, but you could use barley, you could use couscous. Couscous is the grain here. It's used in almost everything. I like it well enough, but I like the taste of barley and wheat and bulgur more. So I'm using that for this salad.
Okay.
Um,
And bulgur
yeah,
is also the wheat that we see often in tabbouleh. Is
yes,
that right? Okay.
yes, exactly. So I
Yeah.
toast it in the oven
Okay.
at like 425 for maybe 10 minutes. So I rinse it first
Okay.
and then toast it with a little bit of salt and olive oil until it's brown. And then I steam it
Got it.
so
Okay.
that it has a nice chewy texture, but it
Yeah.
has the depth that's imparted by the toasting.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah. Fennel is the other ingredient that is in stores a lot. And then I noticed just this week, I had been in the States for a couple weeks and I came back and I noticed when I came back that you could see fennel growing in the wild on the side of the roads.
Wow.
So I was
Yeah.
looking at all these beautiful wispy fronds and I'm like, is
Mhm.
that fennel? And lo and behold, it is. So it
Was.
is
Yeah.
in season,
Okay.
not only in the grocery store, but also on the side streets of Tunisia. So
Wow.
fennel is the vegetable base that we're using in this salad. And then for a little razzle dazzle, we have some red onions and some toasted pistachios. Pistachios are also used very commonly here as they are throughout North Africa and the Middle East. So we're going to put all those things together, give
Yeah.
you a great start for a Monday night meal. You could add protein to this. So you could do a grilled chicken or fish, you could do some tofu. But if you are a vegetarian, a vegan, or you're just opting out of meat on Mondays, like I am right now, you can use the salad as is.
Okay. Perfect.
And the
Perfect.
only two cooked elements are the bulgur and then the slightly toasted pistachios.
Pistachios.
So we have about 2.5 cups of fennel here.
Okay. Yeah.
And fennel has a very chewy texture. So it's important that you slice it thinly.
Okay.
Otherwise, you're just going to be kind of chewing on it forever. You're going to give your jaw a workout. So
Great.
I'm going to put that in. And one of the ways that you can mitigate the toughness of fennel is to just massage it with a little bit of olive oil and salt. And that will help to break down some of the fibrous tissue. So I'm just going to give us a drizzle of olive oil. This is, of course, Tunisian olive oil.
Yeah.
And then just a tiny bit of salt because we're not really trying to use salt for flavoring here. We're just
Right.
using it to break down the toughness of the fennel.
Okay.
We don't want to
Do you
massage it too
find
much
that?
though.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was going to say we want it to maintain some body. We're
Right.
just trying to soften it up a bit. So a
Okay.
light massage,
Yeah.
a Swedish massage, not a deep tissue.
There
Okay.
you go. There you go. Do you find that fennel is very aromatic? Or because I find that it's actually,
Yes.
okay,
This is more aromatic than what I'm used to in the US.
let
You can
see.
smell it has a slightly licorice smell.
Okay,
And if you haven't had it before, it's in the same flavor profiles. Like, I don't want to say this because people seem to hate these, but like a black jelly bean,
okay.
but just the very, 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 very distant cousin of that.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I
So we
I
have our
will say
fennel
I have
there.
cooked with it, but I do find that it has. I've always wanted a little bit more flavor, so I'd be so curious the difference between what we're seeing in the States and what you're experiencing in
Yes, so
Tunisia.
this is more herbaceous, and I'm only using the bulb here. I
The
find
bulb.
that the fronds at the top can have a little bit more flavor, but
Sure.
this is going to provide like a nice amount of body for the salad, especially since we're not using like a leafy green. This is a good base for it, but it's
Okay.
not an overpowering flavor, which for people who do not like a lot of licorice taste is probably all good, right?
Right. Right.
uh,
Exactly.
So then we're going to add in about the same amount. I say it's probably 2 cups here of our toasted steamed bulgur.
Okay.
And like with making rice, what I do is bring my liquid to a boil,
Mhm.
add the bulgur in about a 2-to-1 ratio, so 2 parts of water to 1 part bulgur, and then cover the pot with aluminum foil and then put the top on because the steam is what's really going to help it to cook properly.
Yeah. So it's cooking a
Okay.
lot like couscous in that way, then, right? Where
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
okay,
So you're
okay,
not trying to like just boil it. You really need to capture and harness the power of the steam. Okay, so
yeah,
let's give that a quick mix. And then I would advise to just season as you go. You don't want
okay,
to wait until the end. So I put some salt in the bulgur when I was cooking it. You don't want to go too crazy with the salt at any one point in time because it needs to all work together well. So you're not going to fully salt anything, but you also don't want to wait until the very end to try and add the seasonings in because you're not going to have a chance to penetrate properly. Right.
okay.
So let me, I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is what it's looking like so far.
Looks great, yeah.
Okay. Now we're done. It would not be Tunisia if we did not have dates. There's a lot of pride in this part of the world about dates and date quality from country to country. I had a meeting with some colleagues who I think were from Egypt, and they brought to the meeting a box of dates as a present. And while my
Yeah,
colleagues were, thankful, they're like, Egyptian dates, that's cute. You want dates? We got dates. We don't need your little
oh,
dates.
that's really
So we're
funny.
just gonna add these, and the dates they can be super sweet. These are not quite as dense as some other dates I've had, and
Okay.
they're also quite nutrient dense, so they're good
Mm,
for you, but they do have a lot of calories. So you don't want to go
okay,
crazy with these, and they have a lot of sugar too, so they can cause a spike in your blood sugar. So I would say use these sparingly, but
be
don't be afraid of
mindful.
them.
Okay. Now, are you refrigerating the dates or do you keep them out,
No,
room
no,
temperature?
I leave them out. They're like
Okay.
raisins or any other dried fruit.
Okay.
So this is my date container. It stays on the
Perfect.
counter.
Okay. Yeah.
And I prefer them with the pit still in them because I feel like the flavor is better when they take the pit out before it takes something away from them. And they're very
Yeah.
easy to take out of it. So only is
Yeah.
adding a couple of seconds to your prep time. So we're gonna
Okay.
mix those dates in. Then we're going to add in some red onions. Now, a word about onions in general is that if you find the onions have too pungent a flavor when you cut them, put them in a bath of ice water for 5 minutes or so, and that takes some of this thing out of them. And it also helps
Mm,
to preserve the conversation readiness of your breath.
there you go.
So
Yeah.
you can do that. These are not super pungent. These are a little bit mild, but if you're using a white onion in particular, you want, I wouldn't recommend a white onion for salad, first of all, but if you are using a white onion, even for like a relish or something, and you don't want it to be quite as strong, just dunk it in that ice water. So we're gonna add in these onions, and I'm gonna give this another stir. And with the onions, I used one very small red onion sliced thinly. We just want this to give it a little punctuation of flavor. We're not looking for a full-on oniony taste. Okay, it's coming together now. as our last little bit, we're going to do
Mhm.
two things before we add in the pistachios and orange segments.
Okay.
I am not a zero waste cook, but I try to get as close to that as possible. I mean, I think if you have things that you can use, you should use them. So I did not peel the orange. I cut the rinds off the orange to make these orange segments. But you can see there's still a lot of good pulp in there. So we're just going to take that orange and use that. I'm not going to put a dressing on this salad because there's already a lot going on. You can add a vinaigrette if you'd like, but I think with the combination of the oranges that we're using here and the olive oil that we're going to add, there's enough flavor and enough kind of dressing like quality to bind the salad together in the way that a dressing would. And so at the end of it, we will not have wasted any of this orange.
Right.
Baby orange, you
Absolutely.
did right by us. We're going to honor your life.
Do you
And this would
find that
be
in most of the salads in Tunisia that they are dressing free, or do you guys usually use a dressing already, like vinaigrette?
so. This is not such a salad culture.
Culture. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
You
Yeah.
do have before every meal, they bring out like an array of small appetizers, and there's normally a salad that has cucumbers in that, and maybe some tomatoes.
Okay.
But we don't see that in any kind of tossed green salads, and salads do
Yeah.
not at all feature here as a main course in a way that you could go to a restaurant in the States and order a salad for an entree. That is a non-starter.
Not
People here,
happening.
for the most part,
Yeah.
cook food. So
Okay.
um,
Yeah.
so now we've added in our um, orange, and then we're going to give this just another little bit of olive oil.
Yeah.
I had the good fortune to go to an olive oil harvest for a week in the southern
Wow.
part of the country. One of my friends is a visual artist, and his name is
Mhm.
El Cid,
Yeah.
and he is from the southern part of Tunisia. So he grew up in Paris, but his family is from Tunisia. And
Wow.
he's trying to bring his artistry to the olive oil industry in a pretty economically distressed part of the country. So there's
Okay.
this area of the country is on an oasis, but it has a lot of heavy manufacturing, which is causing environmental problems.
Right.
And there's a lot of economic blight there, kind of a sense of hopelessness. So he had this idea that he would sort of help to revitalize the economy by doing a soup to nuts olive oil production and then making his family's farm a show place. So he
Wow.
had about 25 people from all walks of life, business people, artisans, diplomats, come down just to see this part of the country because I would equate it to like a Mississippi or an Arkansas. Like it's not a natural tourist magnet,
Sure.
even though there's a lot to see there. And so he designed this bottle.
Wow.
So
Oh my
this is his,
gosh.
there's, you can see, this is his artwork. And he does these
Beautiful.
large scale murals all over the world. So he designed this bottle, but this is the first edition. And he's had two other editions where he's brought in his artist friends to design their own bottle. So the shape of the bottle remains the same year after year, but each
Okay.
artist adds their own spin on what the exterior of the bottle looks
Wow.
like. So
Yeah.
this year, Moroccan artist Hassan Hajjaj did it. His looks super cool.
Wow.
Next year, there's a guy named Futura 2000 who's doing it. He's a New
Okay.
York-based graffiti artist,
Yeah.
and he's doing the next bottle. So we saw the preview of the bottle that he designed when we were
That is
down there in
so fun.
October. So yeah.
Wow. So did he ever share a little bit of the background behind the shape of the bottle itself? I feel like it has so much character just based off of
Yeah,
the
it's
tilt,
so
right?
unique and it's
Yeah.
made of pottery. So it's a kind of, you keep it and use it forever. He didn't go too
Right.
much into that. But
Okay.
he knows artists all over. I mean, in this group, we had people from Brazil and Hong Kong. I mean, just every corner of the earth you can think of,
Yeah.
Morocco, Tunisia, US. And so I think he just kind of like was vibing with some
Yeah.
other
No, it's
people and
amazing.
came up with that. Yeah.
Wow.
And the name
That's
of the company is
remarkable.
Tapafe. So you can find those online, but I love what he's doing. I love the way that he's merging commerce and art and agriculture to create something
Absolutely.
completely new and a way forward for his people. So
Right. Wow.
yeah.
Well, that's amazing. Wow. I'm gonna have to look into it. I love it.
So we have what's coming along here. So now We're going to kind of try and beautify the salad before we add it. So I would say I'm a stickler about this. I used to work in a restaurant,
Yeah.
and nothing like angers me more than to see something that looks like the presentation is sloppy. Entertaining. Vinegar is your friend. Vinegar can make anything come shiny and clean. If you're having a
Yeah.
dinner party, you can, after you've washed your plates, you can just give them a quick little mist of vinegar, wipe them down, and they'll sparkle. So I like to take a little bit of vinegar, and this is food safe, um, and just wipe the edge of the bowl.
Okay.
Because if you're present, I mean, if you're eating it by yourself, fine. But if you're going to be serving this to other people, you don't want like the gunk from your preparation to be showing.
Right.
So I would just say take the vinegar and just wipe the edge of the bowl before you do the final part of your presentation so that it looks nice and neat when you present it.
Yeah, I love that. I use vinegar for so many things.
Oh my gosh, it's the kitchen workhorse, right? Okay, so
So
the
good.
last thing we're going to do is add on the orange segments and then the pistachios for a little bit of glitz and glamour at the very end.
Yeah.
So I if I hadn't been coming home from work, would have properly segmented these and
Oh,
really
they
done
look
it up.
beautiful. I mean, the richness
uh,
of the colors, even on the screen, and I know I'm sure in person it's gorgeous, but
thank you.
I love the all the different colors. The dates and oranges, like that just feels like a really lovely combination, right? Of that sweet
Yeah, and it's really
tanginess. Yeah.
delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
And need so the oranges here are, quite sweet, but
okay.
they're balanced by the crispness of the fennel
Okay.
and
Right.
by the richness and the depth of the toasted bulgur. So we have a nice little
Absolutely.
combination.
Absolutely.
And then we're just going to take our pistachios.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be stingy. If you have a nut allergy or you're just nut averse and don't like the taste, you can skip this part.
Okay.
I also made this with like a little bit of feta.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
If you want to have a little bit of cheesiness and the creaminess of it pairs well with the other elements of the salad too. So you can really take this um in any direction that your refrigerator and your taste buds
Yeah.
dictate. These are suggestions. I think this is like who's the guy from the New York Times there's a food editor of the New York Times who's like, this is a recipe ish. It's not
Right. Right.
right. This
It's
is
a
not
beautiful
strictly speaking
foundation,
recipe.
right? Like you can add anything to it. So that's great.
Yes. And then we're
Yeah.
just going to clean this up one more time and
Okay.
then we're ready to rock and roll.
Wow. No, it's
And this is
beautiful.
our finished
Oh, I love
salad.
it. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, I can see so many different proteins on it, but as someone who really is a pescatarian and most days full on vegan, like this is a wonderful addition to a week like a weekday dinner, right? It's lovely.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, nice.
Here we go.
Oh, it's beautiful. I love it. So I'm going to shift us just a little bit because as we prepare for Alumni Day, which is Friday of this week,
Oh,
and we are bringing in so many different alums from different backgrounds and careers, I'm always curious what would you share with a current Roper student or young people today on how pursuing creative paths is really important, right? We get caught up in what society wants us to be, and that I know growing up with two physician parents, they're like, you need to be a doctor. That's what you do, right? And so you have been able to balance just so many different things, but how have you always kept that creative lens as the forefront of your work? And do you have any kind of tools that you would share with young students today on how to make sure that that happens and you don't lose sight of the things that make you happy and keep you grounded?
yeah. So I think that that's a very different question with very different answers for
Yeah,
for young people in this generation as
yeah,
compared to my generation, 20 years ago when we were making career decisions.
yeah. Right.
Number one, almost any skill set can be monetized now,
Yeah,
right? Which
yeah,
changes the conversation.
it
Because
does.
20 years ago, if I had said, I don't want to be a lawyer,
Mhm.
I want to go do makeup, I would be basically relegating myself to a life of making $25,000 or $30,000
Right.
and cutting myself off from the possibility of being a person of consequence in any sphere outside of maybe the people whose makeup I did. Like I could still have some conversations with them, but it was limited, right? There was no social media. Your clients were who you are, unless you were a celebrity makeup artist performing at the very highest levels. Like
Right.
your economic opportunities were not that great.
Mhm.
Now you can go on TikTok or YouTube and make a real living for yourself, be very well compensated, have conversations with people from around the world, build up a following, and be influential and export whatever your values are from the privacy of your own home. So the career options and what can be considered viable are very, very different now from what they were a generation ago. And I would say even 10 years ago in terms of how you can monetize different skill sets. So I'm really happy for young people who are coming up now who don't face the choice of like, you're either a doctor, a lawyer, a banker, or a failure, right? That
Yeah.
has never been the Roper way. But I
Mhm.
do think the Roper, necessarily existed within the larger societal construct. No matter what the values of the school are, we're going out into a real world that had its own set of values. And
Right.
very often, creatives were not properly rewarded for their hard work and effort. And that's not the case right now. So I think if I were a young person making a decision now, I might make a different choice. I don't regret becoming a lawyer. And I want to say that I think that having a high level, something in your life, whether it is your career or just your own independent study that involves a great level of intellectual rigor is really important.
Yeah.
We are, with all the great things that technology has given us, and it has afforded us many gifts, there does seem to be kind of a mind rot going on society wide. People are becoming way too dependent on technological tools to do their thinking for them. It has, I think, in some ways, really discouraged robust investigation and conversation. And there's no substitute for doing the work. You can use tools, you can do things more efficiently, but you still got to use your brain. And I don't want people to like shy away from that. And so, one thing that becoming a lawyer force Roper had already encouraged, but taking that bar force was a a great level of study and serious mindedness about the academic task at hand. And I hope that kind of remains evergreen, even though we do have tools that make learning more accessible and easier for a whole lot of people. But going back to sort of nurturing your passions, I was really lucky to grow up in a household where my parents never made me feel like I had to pick.
Mhm.
Like you can be really bright and really studious and a great dancer and a cook and a singer and and a DJ. Like you just got to give your
It
best to
shows,
whatever the
right? Yeah.
task at hand is.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Absolutely.
I think also the sort of egalitarian values of Roper lived through. I'm still in touch with all my best girlfriends from Roper,
Right.
and I see the choices that they have made
Yeah.
and how they show up in their lives. In that sense, that like there is honor in work,
Right.
whether you are a trash person or a physician. Your work may affect society differently, but anyone who's underperforming is underperforming for everyone that's around them. And anyone who's doing the most and maximizing is maximizing to the benefit of everyone around them. So just imagine a situation where you have a trash collector who's like, no, I'm not gonna pick that up, right? So, so no big deal until like the rats descend upon your neighborhood and you can't walk because the street is trashed. And like we look over that job until it's not done properly and correctly. But the
Yeah.
men and women who are doing that job to the best of their ability every single day make our lives easier and make our lives cleaner. And that's foundational. So it's really important that we honor and respect their work. People like your parents who are physicians who are out there literally saving lives, and people who are working as teachers who are saving lives in a different kind of way and giving life. So every job matters and there's honor in all of those jobs. And you just have to
Mhm.
figure out kind of what you want your lane to be, at least for the moment. Know that
Right.
that might change over time and give it your all while you're in it,
Mhm.
right? Like my mom used to always say, you got to win where you're planted. So I
Yeah.
think sometimes there's this temptation, like, oh, if I just had that job, I would be better. Or if I just were in that school, I would be better. If I just, studied this, I would be differently better. No, you have to make it happen where you are. And then once you demonstrate, number one, fidelity in the moment, and number
Mhm.
two, expertise and competence, people are looking at you all the time to see, okay, can we trust them with the next thing? So
Yeah.
if you're constantly flitting from thing to thing or showing that you're a dilettante and you cannot be trusted to complete the task at hand, you're never going to have those other opportunities that might broaden and open up some of the things that you're interested in. So I know that, as a person like with professional ADHD, it can sometimes be hard to focus because you look at it, there's so many
Yeah.
other things we're not like, bring it here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
cut those oranges. Toast those nuts. Today we're making a salad. Tomorrow we might be doing something different, but right now
Right.
we're
Right.
making a
Right.
salad.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no, that's perfect. Well, Heather Joy, I really appreciate it. I have been, I think, for maybe the last 2 years, I'm like, we have got to make a demo happen. This has been
I'm so
so
glad that we did
exciting. I am
it.
so grateful. And I know within the bridge and our steering committee, we've been so excited to like really hone in on culinary arts. I think at some of our meetings, I find that when we do a quick check-in question, it's always like, okay, share what like your favorite household recipe has been, or what meal makes you the most happy. Like, and we've been able to really connect as an alumni affinity group on food, and so it just felt like really exciting to be able to honor different areas of cuisine, and then most especially have the opportunity to connect with you, even all the way from Tunisia. And this is when technology is like really great, right? So it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. I'd like to add one thing before
Yeah,
I go.
of
This is going
course.
back to sort of Roperian values and lifelong learning.
Yeah.
I am almost a big, big age. And every single place I go in the world, I take a cooking class.
Mm.
And sometimes that class is somewhere fancy, like the Cordon Bleu with a big commercial kitchen and proper chefs who have Michelin stars. And sometimes it is in someone's house. So I was in the country of Georgia a couple of months ago, and I took a class in this woman's house, and her kitchen was probably 50 square feet. And there are four of us. And my good girlfriend who lives in Dubai, we met up in Georgia, the cook, the lady who taught the class, and then her cousin who came just to kind of give some extra flavor. And the four of us were in there shoulder to shoulder, kneading dough, chopping things to make the stuffed grape leaves. But I learned so much from them, not only about their food and their culture, but just about how they relate to each other, what their values are. And that was in this little shoebox sized kitchen. I was in
Yeah,
Paris in October and I took a big fancy French class, at the Cordon Bleu's flagship institution in Paris. So, do it all kinds of ways, but just continue to seek to build your knowledge and your understanding and to be curious about the world.
absolutely. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, well,
Oh, that's so,
thank
so
you.
fun.
Well,
Thank you so
I'm
much
so,
and happy Black History Month.
yes,